Hi, everybody. Welcome to another chapter with Audrey. I hope you're safe and well. Today, I'm delighted to carry on my reflection and forecast interview series where I look back on 2024 and look ahead to this year with C-suite executives across the life science, pharma, and biopharma segments to get their views on what's been happening. And I'm delighted, genuinely delighted to be catching up with Audrey Greenberg, who is currently founder and CEO of AG Capital Advisors. But prior to that, she was founder and CBO at the Center for Breakthrough Medicines, which is now SK pharmteco. See, Audrey, I got it right. Uh, and
Nice
so,
job, nice
and,
job.
and as she's been involved within the cell and gene therapy space for many years, what better person to look at how the sector performed, some of the challenging trends in the last 12 months, and also get her views on what she thinks about the sector and some predictions for this year as well. So, Audrey, first of all, it's lovely to see you. I haven't seen you in ages. How are you?
It's so good to be here, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been a crazy winter with flu and whatnot, but we're making it through into spring, and I'm excited for all the upcoming conferences that I hope to see you at.
Well, possibly yes. Well, we'll talk a bit about that as well, maybe as we go along. Now, before we start, though, as I said, you have got quite a bit of experience in the cell and gene therapy, and I've sort of understated actually what you've done recently. So, I would like you to give viewers, if you don't mind, a very quick overview of your own background and also your experiences in the cell and gene space.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So I would classify at a high level spending my career at the intersection of innovation, um, biotech and finance, let's say. I started my career heavily in finance and accounting, investment banking, and private equity. Made my way into biotech really through real estate. We acquired a very large, big, ugly, empty, big pharma building from GSK and repurposed it into a cell and gene therapy center of excellence, which also housed the Center for Breakthrough Medicines, which you mentioned, a cell and gene therapy CDMO, taking about 500,000 square feet, where we in 2019 started construction and brought online a 500,000 square foot GMP and support space for viral vectors, plasmid, cell therapy, testing and analytics, process development, and really have one of the best teams in cell and gene therapy manufacturing. And it was a pleasure to start, build, and ultimately exit that company to SK pharmteco, which is a consolidation of 5 different CDMOs around the world.
Brilliant. Now, you and I met at a couple of shows last year, so I know you've been heavily involved in the sector and
Yeah,
seen what's going on. So, from your perspective, how would you describe 2024 in one word and why?
I would say resilience. It's we came off of the market highs in 2022, resulted in some extending cash runways and program reprioritization in 23, and everyone was hoping 2024 would be the watershed moment of a pivot in market. But unfortunately, 24 was kind of flat, if not down, perhaps from 23. So it was resilience. Those that made it obviously were able to figure out a way to either reduce costs, increase revenue, cut certain lumpy cash expenses and things of that nature. So, or be in a space where things were really taking off. There are big pockets of opportunity, and we did see some very large transactions last year for differentiated technologies and late stage assets. So I would say those that navigated the capital constraints, the financial markets, and regulatory hurdles were the ones that really survived and were able to push forward with their scientific breakthroughs.
Well, that's really interesting. Now, you mentioned obviously there were some pockets of opportunities within the space.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about that first. And so, what were some of the pockets of opportunities that you've seen or you saw in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, if there's first on the therapeutic side for programs that had strong clinical validation rather than platform technologies, which we saw in the past, were really the ones that investors were focused on. And then second, everybody's got to talk about AI. I think we saw more deals in AI than ever before. So the rise in AI on the discovery side, but also in manufacturing, which is quite interesting. So AI and automation were really at the forefront and are playing a bigger role in optimizing CGT production. A third, I would say, significantly more strategic M&A deals, because it's sort of those that couldn't get financing were maybe forced into this, and others, we're seeing big pharma realizing all the patent cliffs that are coming, and they're needing to diversify their pipeline into newer modalities. So you're seeing a lot of big pharma M&A, and diversification in their portfolio. And really, ultimately, in that third category, it's about collaboration and sharing resources so that those that can stretch their dollars are able to get to the next milestone, an inflection point. And then last, I have to mention cell and gene therapy, regenerative medicine momentum. We're seeing a real focus on precision medicine and being able to treat someone based on their biomarkers, their DNA, cell rejuvenation, gene editing, and regenerative approaches are really gaining traction.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
we talked about some of the opportunities. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you saw in the marketplace. I mean, some of them are obvious, and you touched on them a little bit anyway when you talked about resilience. But what were the main challenges you feel the sector faced last year, and how did they do in dealing with those particular challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the money right now. It's really hard to raise capital. Early stage programs are really banging their heads against the wall. You talk to the CEOs of these companies, and it's very hard. You used to say, oh, it's taking twice as long and it's costing twice as much. I mean, multiply that by 10. So it takes years. It's been taking years to get a capital raise done. So those that have strong relationships, both in the financial community as well as with big pharma, are thriving. Well, thriving are surviving in this environment. Hopefully, thrive in 25 is my new phrase. But yeah, it's been challenging. So that's the first thing. And I think now there was some uncertainty around the election, and everyone said, oh, the uncertainty, who's going to be in power. And now there's uncertainty with the administration. And it's not just that decisions are being made that are impacting us significantly, but then they're flip-flopping on those decisions. So no one knows what the decisions are, if they're going to stay, what the impact of those are. So it's a weird time. And I think the 2024 would be described as a year, as I said, of resilience and of tightening of financial markets. There's still some uncertainty around inflation, and the geopolitical risks are huge. Although in times of uncertainty, and risk, those that run towards places that others are running away from, that's an opportunity to really negotiate at times a very good deal. So I would advise investors to find those pockets of opportunity and take advantage of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that leads very nicely to some of the trends you saw. Now, you touched on AI, obviously, but what other key trends did you see, and what therapies in particular do you think uh, became, I hate to use the word sexy, but maybe more in
Yeah.
focus, or more in demand, let's put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, ADCs, GLP-1s, not necessarily within cell and gene therapy, obviously, but in vivo gene editing, technologies like CRISPR and base editing will move closer to real world applications. That's the first thing. And then outside of specific modalities, I'd say further consolidation is destined to occur, both within the therapeutic space, but certainly in the biopharma services space. You walk around these conferences and you've got 10 people doing the same thing, not just CDMOs, but all the tools and technologies providers. I imagine that someone's going to curate a very interesting mix of tools and technologies that are a game changer for the industry. So further consolidation, advancements in vivo gene editing, manufacturing breakthroughs. We know about Solaris and Ori Bio and some of these very interesting automated platforms that significantly reduce the cost of autologous cell therapies, so manufacturing breakthroughs. Fourth, I'd say new pricing and reimbursement models. Bluebird, maybe not the prime example, but ways to work with value-based pricing, performance-based payment structures. New pricing and reimbursement models are definitely emerging. And I expect innovative financing structures to emerge for CGT and become more mainstream. And then I would say, lastly, the convergence of bio and tech bio, where you've got, and look, you can't open the paper, so to speak, or go online and your newsreel and not see an example of an announcement for AI, computational biology, synthetic biology are going to increasingly shift the space going forward. And hopefully, by the way, increase speed, reduce costs, and make things more efficient so that patients can get these treatments more expeditiously.
Yeah, well, that's the ultimate goal for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
I saw you actually having an interesting debate on LinkedIn comparing the CGT market and the high-end fast car market,
Very true.
which was a really interesting conversation to follow
Yeah.
because I was just following it. I had nothing to contribute. I just thought this was interesting.
Everybody loves a nice car.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it was interesting. Maybe you could explain why, what the comparison was and whether you agree or not with that, because I
Yeah.
think
So, yeah, I mean, look, my roots are in Detroit, and so I grew up in the auto industry, so to speak. Uh, I There's price elasticity, um, and then there's times of not. Okay, so I first of all, let me just say that I did not start this analogy. I
you
find
didn't
it
know,
very,
but it's a very interesting analogy, I think.
yes. So I guess the original point was, you know, luxury vehicles, does a product, an expensive product, much like a luxury car or cell and gene therapy, have pricing power? And how much does the consumer respond to that pricing power? And how much leverage does the consumer have, or the manufacturer, to move pricing? And it's complicated by the fact, it's in particular in the pharmaceutical industry, as we all know, that there's someone else in the middle, right? And so who is that? That's the payer. And I think one thing maybe the public doesn't know, I'm sure everyone that listens to this episode will know, but the price, and this is similar to the auto industry, by the way, the sticker price is not the price. And so the payers negotiated heavily 50% of what you read in the Wall Street Journal. And I don't think that's widely known or understood. And some of what we talked about in our last response of these creating and flexible pricing models that are more, I wouldn't say value based, I guess you call it value, but like evidence and results oriented, are very obviously very different than the auto industry. You don't pay based on how the car performs, and there's nobody in the middle telling you what you can and can't charge. So I like the analogy and I find it compelling, but I don't find it as relevant because of the specifics of our industry and the complications of the dynamics of a patient's death being on the line, and the ethics behind a lot of this are very important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, well, interesting. I was having a conversation with someone else about ethics actually, because there is a debate to be had that obviously CGT, the drugs, are obviously life changing.
Yeah.
But when you are a payer or a health system and have a limited budget, where do you put that budget towards purchasing drugs? Do you purchase drugs which can save the many, or do you pay for a drug which can save the few? And that becomes an ethical question as well, though, doesn't it? Particularly when you're
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, but like, look, unfortunately, the market is increasingly driven by, we're seeing a shift away from DE&I and ESG and a real push towards economic based decision making. And even given that, like if you look at ARM, the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, excuse me, and Tufts did a really interesting, I can send you the link, analysis. It's on the ARM website, of the economic benefit of cell and gene therapies. I don't think people understand, even with the discounted actual price of these drugs, or in the inflated price for that matter, the cost of treatment over a lifetime and the impact on society of a patient that is not fully functional versus a healthy individual, and the impact not just on the cost of treatment but also on society, and is enormous. And so there's an economic analysis that shows the cost of these drugs are actually relatively inexpensive versus the cost of not treating the patient. I think the complication in the United States versus some of the other countries that pay for healthcare and social costs are that patients in the United States often switch healthcare plans. So if you're paying up front, that's why there's these creative financial structures that need to come to the table with pools of capital that move with the patient over time to the extent that treatment is paid for over time. So there'll be some creative reinsurance models in that regard, but the ethics of it are important, obviously. But the economics in and of themselves, ethics aside, are case in point of why you actually do want to treat these patients, even at the higher price point, because the cost of not treating them is much greater.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. And I'd love to have the link to add to this video as well that
Yeah.
you just mentioned. Now, let's look ahead to 2025. You touched on some of 2025 in your answers there anyway, but uh, I always ask this question now, is that how optimistic are you about 2025 for the sector? You sort of touched upon how optimistic was your little statement about 2025, but how optimistic are you?
Um, it's hard to say, and we're almost at the end of February, which I can't believe, or we are last day of February, almost into March. Third quarter is going to be around the corner. I mean, second quarter is going to be around the corner. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm hopeful that in the second quarter here, we'll get some certainty around what the administration is going to do and the impact of that. Capital inflows towards the latter half of this year will begin to open up, barring a collapse of the financial markets, which is very unlikely, but you always have to consider. So, look, I'm very hopeful in 2025. I think we'll see a lot of momentum going into the second half of this year. And 26, you'll see that hockey stick growth. So I'm excited about what's ahead, specifically in gene editing, mRNA, LNPs are a hot area, epigenetic reprogramming, AI and biomanufacturing. All of those things are very exciting. And I do feel the financial markets will begin to open up.
Fantastic. Well, you sort of preempted my next two questions with just that one answer, because I was going to ask you,
Oh,
what trends do you think will emerge this year? But you sort of touched upon some of them, but are there any other trends that you're particularly excited about in
I mean, yeah, I
2020?
would say first, cost reduction in cell and gene therapy manufacturing through AI and automation. The second would be the potential to reverse aging, um, and really treat age-related diseases. My mother has dementia, and you just
Mine
see
too, so I know the feeling.
it's
Sorry.
just by the way, one and two sort of go together. The impact of cellular regeneration and the ability to reverse aging would be incredible, and the cost of society and the benefits would be great. Gene editing, obviously, advancements based in prime editing technologies are opening new doors for targeted therapies. And then last, beyond vaccines and into CGT applications, certainly mRNA and LNP. So I'm excited about these new modalities that can impact our sector as well. And then overall, I'm excited to really see some commercial um, success stories, right? So there's been the opposite of that lately, and I'm excited to see sort of these bigger, wider spread indications where there's widespread adoption and commercial success. And I think that will give sort of a stamp of approval for some of the capital to flow into the space so that those early stage companies can start to thrive as well.
Great. Now, I was going to ask you this, but I just remembered you and I did an interview at one show. I can't remember what now. I think it was SGCT when we talked about women in CGT. And I know you're an advocate very much so for DEI in the workplace.
Yes.
So, how important do you think it is, given the current climate, particularly in the US, not so much in Europe, I don't think at the moment, but to actually defend DEI within the corporate structures and to encourage diversity within the workplace?
Yeah, it's incredibly important and it's near and dear to my heart. I don't think someone should get promoted or get something they don't deserve. I'm never a fan of that. However, you have to give a nod. Like people are, the old boys club is a real thing. I
I know, I
mean,
agree, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, you have to give an opportunity for those that have, let's say, talking about young professionals, those that have the grades, those that have the track record and um, the potential to compete at a very high level, you have to give them a chance and make sure that you have not only because it's ethically responsible, but I actually think the organizations benefit from it. I've seen this groupthink decision making where you don't have diversity of perspectives, people don't speak up, and organizations ultimately make bad decisions. You have to consider all perspectives and pathways and possibilities, especially in the environment that we're in that's really hard to navigate. Opening your periscope of what's possible through new perspectives and that's really through diversity, is super important for these organizations to thrive. So having women with a seat at the table, minorities with a seat at the table, those with diverse backgrounds that come from big pharma, emerging biotech, tech bio, AI, all of those things need to come together to help solve the big problems that our industry is trying to solve.
Well said. I agree 100%, not surprisingly. But also, I think if you are a company which is truly meant to be global and trying to be global, you have to be diverse as well. Because how can you do business in other countries
Yeah.
without knowing how they operate or how culturally they may be different to how you are personally as well? So I think it's very important. Fantastic. Look, Audrey.
I have to say, I love the jerseys behind you. Thank you so much for giving a shout out to Philly. You've got every
Well, they
single
are as the
jersey.
Americans would say, world champions. Although if you're in Europe, you laugh at the term world champions because no one else really plays it. But they are Super Bowl champions and deserving ones as well. As I watched the game and I was so pleased they beat the Chiefs. Actually, not that if you're a Chiefs fan, obviously I love the Chiefs, but I was happy for the Eagles. Let's put it that way.
EATLES Eagles.
But so finally, last words from your perspective. Obviously, you have got a unique perspective having worked within the investment sector and
Yeah.
also worked within Cell and Gene. So you have got I think a a great perspective to talk about it because obviously C&G is so dependent on funding for its growth. So final words from your perspective about the Cell and Gene sector itself and why people should be optimistic and why people should be working within it and be involved in it.
Yeah, look, it's an incredible, the science is amazing. This is the first inning of cell and gene therapy. We are at the forefront of what is destined to be really the future of medicine. We're going from a one size fits all to a precision approach to medicine, dramatically improving outcomes and being able to diagnose things that were previously undiagnosable through big data and technology and AI. It's super exciting time for our children, the future of healthcare, our aging population, and the ability to not only treat disease but reverse aging. And so putting your money where your mouth is and investing in some of these technologies, having the financial markets keep pace with the scientific breakthroughs and the regulatory improvements that we're seeing is really what's going to propel us all forward and ultimately help the planet.
Fantastic. Well, Audrey, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. I hope you have a fantastic 2025. I look forward to seeing you in person
Yes.
at a event in the not too distant future, whether it's meeting on the Med, maybe if you're going, or ASGCT, ICT, or Bio, or maybe all of them or none of them, who knows?
Yeah.
But I'll see it, one of them anyway in the not too distant future. So there you go, viewers. If you'd like to know more about what Audrey does, actually, follow her on LinkedIn. She is prolific, but also she actually knows what she's talking about. So it's always interesting getting her views on what's going on in the market. So follow her on LinkedIn. You can meet her at lots of other events, and she's on AI. You work with ARM,
Yeah,
I should
the
say.
Alliance for Regenerative. Yeah, I'm on the ARM board. They're an incredible organization. They run meeting on the Med and meeting on the Mesa, among other things. They're incredible advocates for our industry. So I highly recommend becoming a member of ARM. You will get a wonderful network and learn things you never even thought of. So definitely become a member.
Yeah, I would recommend it. They are a lovely group of people as well. So make sure you do that as well. But as I said, follow Audrey, and you can meet her at many other shows. Trying to keep her attention, I'm shocked I've managed to keep her focused for the last half an hour. So I'm really pleased about that. I've succeeded. But Audrey, thank you very much. So viewers, it's lovely to see you. But the other thing I would say is also, if you agree or disagree with Audrey, feel free to put them in the comments below this video, because it'd be great to get some dialogue going on what your views are around the CG space as well. So Audrey, once again, it's lovely to see you. I'll catch up with you soon. And viewers, thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, stay well and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Great.